GBS leaders delivering that enterprise value. We're starting to see more and more where AI is taking on the transactional work and the analytical work and other pieces. Do you think it changes GBS's identity, or where does GBS go next?
Why would a new GCC not start at the top end of somebody else's S-curve? A lot of the work will change the way we do it today, but it might end up increasing the canvas of what a GCC can ultimately do. Execution excellence really talks a lot more than sales and marketing.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode. I'm delighted today to welcome a seasoned GBS leader, Mohit Bhatia. Let's just begin. Mohit, tell us a little bit about your personal journey.
Hey, thanks, Atul. Thanks for having me. What I say? I'm a chartered accountant. I've been working for 38 years. I worked for 10 years with the American Express company, then 16 years with GE and Genpact, about 5 years with a company called Mondelez International, then 6 years with AP Moller Maersk. I have very recently joined Rolls-Royce. A little bit on what I did in American Express while I was a business leader in the last couple of years. I helped them set up the first GCC in India. And then GE was setting up their own capability center, and I was part of their founding team to set up the GE Capital International Services, which was their captive center. But soon that center became public. It's today called Genpact, and it's an independent company listed in the New York Stock Exchange.
Yeah.
I was there for 16 years with them, with two big roles, being the business leader for their finance and accounting services and being their global CFO for 5 years. Finally, I left GE and I joined Mondelez International. These guys had just demerged from the Kraft Group, and they didn't have a GCC strategy, they had a third-party strategy. But they had never done it before, so they wanted someone experienced who knew how to do it. And then I joined Maersk. Maersk was a very old GCC, 25 years old, and they had big plans for it. So it was a massive GCC of about 19,000 people. And I did honestly retire from Maersk, but then I was pulled in more recently by Rolls-Royce to join them, and I'm very happy I did that.
Mohit, what a great deep experience from setting up from scratch, helping mature ones kind of rebuild in a sense, and now with Rolls-Royce. Let's jump to the heart of it. We're seeing significantly new GCCs being built, first-time GCCs. So, what advice would you have for companies that are building their first GCC, especially when they're first ideating on that concept?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I would say they should be clear about the objective. So why is the organization setting up this GCC in the first place? And their GCCs, organizations have different goals and objectives, and the GCC leader who's been in charge to set up this new GCC should be very clear. What is it that the leadership team wants me to achieve? There is a lot of variation here, and so it's very important that whoever's setting it up is very clear
Yeah.
about that. The second thing I would say is that it's a great opportunity for someone setting up a new GCC to jump the curve, right? What I mean is,
Yeah.
why would a new GCC not start at the top end of somebody else's S curve, right? Now, this is talk is cheap. It's not easy.
Yeah.
After all, the other GCCs have taken 15 years to mature. So
Yeah.
maybe they can't jump the S curve immediately, but at least they can cut short the time frame. They can learn best practices, and they don't need to reinvent stuff that others have
Yeah.
already done. So that's the
Yeah.
other thing. I think the third important thing I'd mention is it's important that there is leadership sponsorship for this GCC. This is not a side act,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
Otherwise, there's no point. And therefore, the leadership at the headquarters, they need to be willing to invest in the people, in the process, in the talent, in the technology. They should be willing to empower this new GCC leader, to be
Yeah.
able to influence global mandates, especially when
Yeah.
it comes to, process improvement and service placement.
Yeah, Mohit, I like that. I think, look, you basically talked about sponsorship. Look, start at the top of the S curve, learn from other people's experience. You might as well. And
Absolutely.
then third piece was very clear on the outcomes. And I think, when I hear that, I talked recently with Bill Jolly, for
Right.
example, at Bayer. I noticed that great GBS leaders think in years, like your point about, hey, jump the S curve
Yeah.
instead of quarter. Uh, How do you develop that orientation, and can it be taught?
So let me start with the end. I think it can be taught. We humans are smart. It can be taught. Um, I believe that not just the GCC leader, the entire leadership of the company needs to be thinking mid to long term, right? I learned this the hard way. I learned this when I was the CFO of Genpact. The analysts, the investors, they push you in a corner to think about quarters. But it's
Yeah,
your job to think mid to long term. Leaders like you and me will come and go, but the organization is a going concern forever, and it's our
yeah,
fiduciary responsibility then to think longer term. And then, closer to the ground, it takes time to build a culture. It takes time to break the silos. It takes time to build a partnership with stakeholders. So I do not think that we should be thinking quarters at all. We should be thinking long term.
to that point, Mohit, you know, as part of that, there's always this discussion about enterprise value, and it's a word that's very frequently used. And we in fact heard that at SSON recently
Yeah,
in Lisbon.
we did.
So, right. So when you strip away all that language, do you think it actually means to you in practice?
Yeah, I've always believed that whichever function in the company, department, in this case, the GCC, it has to be completely aligned to the company's goals, objectives, and business outcomes. And to me, therefore, enterprise value means, are we contributing to those business outcomes? They could differ, but for the most part, there would be growth and revenue, there would be margins, cash flow, sustainability. And the GCC cannot live in a silo. It has to ultimately align to these business
Yeah,
outcomes. So to me, if
yeah,
they're contributing to any of these metrics, then
yeah.
they're contributing to enterprise value, right?
Yeah.
I think
I
that to me is very, very important.
I love that. Like direct line of sight to what the business outcomes for the enterprise are. That's what enterprise value is. That's what you're delivering to.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They don't need to get scared about this if they're starting out, because they need to focus on execution excellence, and they'll automatically get to adding this value to the business outcomes.
So Mohit, as we are looking at great leaders, GBS leaders delivering that enterprise value, we're starting to see more and more where AI is taking on the transactional work and the analytical work and other pieces. Do you think it changes GBS's identity, or where does GBS go next?
So you're talking to someone who's an optimist. I'm very positive about the GBS GCC world. So to me, while AI will change everyone's life, and I hope for the positive and make everyone more productive, to me, wearing the GCC hat, I think that a lot of the work will change the way we do it today, but it might end up increasing the canvas of what a GCC can ultimately do, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
then it's a little bit of a cliche now because I've read it so much in social media, but there's this Givon's contradiction or paradox, which
yeah,
talks of AI and automation expanding work and not reducing it, right? Because the
yeah,
thirst and hunger for information goes up. There is so much opportunity. You just need to make sure you're upgrading your talent
yeah,
and filling the
yeah.
skill gaps.
No, I think it's a great way to say it, which is, look, that canvas is actually really expanding. The possibilities are expanding. So why would you think of that as limiting for GPS? It's actually an expanding world. So on that point, we do see organizations at times kind of disbanding GBS. It doesn't mean that the model was not working. It's a different organizational structure. But still, how do you build a GBS organization that survives a change in CEO or a CFO or corporate strategy? Ones that have institutional durability. What do you think about that, Mohit?
I think you need to do that over time. Good GBSs who are mature, their processes are woven into the company's fabric or ways of working. Okay. And therefore, it doesn't matter who's in charge, but you're an integral part. You're a horizontal that cuts across the company. You're an integral part of how work gets done. I can give you an example. At Maersk, for example, almost 20% of the headcount is in the GBS. Right from start to end, the GBS supports everything. It's part of the
Yeah,
fabric,
yeah,
and it supports the entire global supply chain. There are many companies like that. I'm giving you one example.
yeah, yeah,
And therefore, it does not matter whether there is a change in the CXO level or whatever, the GBS will play a very important role. Now, having said that, if there is a change at the CFO, CXO, CEO level, yes, there could be some levels of difference in sponsorship, and we deal with that, right? But
yeah,
but
yeah.
overall, if you're integrated, it should not matter.
Look, the GBS organizations that are not doing well are the ones that think of themselves as a siloed organization. And that's not
Absolutely.
the way to think about it, right? So you're
Yeah.
talking about make sure, it's integrated. So, Mohit, for my final question, as these GCCs are multiplying and more companies bringing on a GBS model, what is one message that you would send to the next generation of GBS leaders right now? What would that be?
Okay. There's so much to tell them, but I'll limit it to 1 or 2 points, I guess. I would say, and this is for GCC or any leader, understand the big picture, understand the jigsaw puzzle, right? A GCC is not a silo, it's not a fiefdom. Your metric is not how large your GCC is, right? Understand the drivers of what the CXO and the board are worried about, and how do you fit into that whole thing? That's one. Then I would really shortlist, you know, proactive building of talent and execution excellence should be your top two priorities because everything else is a means to achieve this end or it's going to lead to a great business outcome if you are building great talent and you're delivering execution excellence. So these are really, really important to me. And then over
Yeah,
time, the GCC leader should become a genuine decision maker with
yeah,
real accountability and
yeah.
moving from cost to, value being the currency.
Yeah, so focus on operational excellence, not marketing decks to the headquarters.
You know, execution excellence really talks a lot more than sales and
Yeah,
marketing.
yeah, yeah. It conveys what matters. Mohit, so delighted to have you. Thank you for sharing your wisdom with us. Thank you.
Thanks for having me, Atul.